But before we go to Google Econ, I'm going to go into this very briefly, a sort of principle in which I've mentioned in the previous webinar, but I'd like to really go back into it because as we progress, I have built in a bit of more of my thinking into this. And it's understand the supply and demand principle in Google economy and your role at SEO content writer in 2022. All right, and so the first is supply and demand. So as you all know, let me put this on present face. Okay. Oh, as you all know, I'm gonna smaller my face a bit here. Okay, so on a standard economy, right, you have three main elements. The first is demand, you have market, and then you have supply. So on the demand end, it's represented by the consumer or the users, whatever. Market would act as a platform, and supply a company or individual has the product, service, or information that will match with the consumer demands. And the way that market propel forward, right, grow over the year is by its ability to match supply and demands together, right? Consumer has demand, supply has the product or service. They will try to match each other through the use of market, right? Demand, market, supply. So now that's in a standard economy, right? So the job of market is always about matching between supplier and demand. And the supply and demand, as they mesh together, continue to match, that's where the market continue to grow, right? The more needs are being fulfilled, that's how the market will continue to grow. So now let's look at Google's economy. Things are essentially the same. In here, you have demand are represented by users, right? The market is Google, and supply are all the websites that has product, service, or information that they want to show users that they can match. And if they are able to match and Google choose that your website is the right supplier, Google will put you on top of the SEO search engine. So users will actually voice their demand through the keywords that they search, right? If the user search for the word indoor plants, that's their demand. They want to know everything about indoor plants, either the knowledge about indoor plants, either how to grow indoor plants, either they want to sell indoor plants, they want to buy indoor plants. All of those knowledge, that's the demand, right? And the urgency or how high or low that demand is actually represented by the search volume. So if people search, if in a month there's 1 million people search for indoor plants, that is a very high demand keyword, and that's a very high demand things. So that's the first part you have to understand. The second part is the market. So the Google's job is to match this user's demand, all the intents and everything about it, to their appropriate suppliers, right? And on the supplier end is still websites, all right? And Google existence, they grow or they earn money or that based on the fact that they are able to match these two together, right? And because of their ability to match, that's why they are become the most trusted source of all search engines in the world. They are now taking over still above 95% of all searches. That's crazy domination, right? And that's Google's job. And website, that's you guys, right? If you're SEO, if you own a website, if you are a person who run an SEO team helping your clients, they have a website, this is you, right? And your job here as a supplier is two things. Okay. Your job as a supplier is to have to understand your stand. First, you have to know that you are the supplier, right? You in this economy, you are the supplier. So as a supplier, you have to do two things. The first is you have to understand your market. You have to know who you are dealing with. You have to know how the market has evolved all the time, right? What do they require? What are the requirements? What are the do and the don't? You know, what there are guidelines. If you want to function on the market, you have to know the guidelines, right? What make Google want to put one website over the other on the search engine, right? And that's your job. That's the first things you have to do is actually not to understand your consumer, but you have to understand the market that you're operating in, right? The playground. You are a player, you have to understand the playground, the rules and do and don'ts and everything. And second thing, you have to understand, after you understand the market, then you move to understand your users, right? What are your what are their needs? What are their wants? What are their needs and want already be catered by some competitors? And can you compete in that niche, right? Can you compete in those things? So first, understand the market, then understand the readers, right? And so a lot of people get this wrong. When you start doing SEO, you right away and you jump in and you think, oh, I have to do keyword research. Keyword research are actually, you are researching about your customer. The first thing you have to do is actually to research about your marketplace, which is Google. And so here, I was actually have a slide for this, right? It's not, keyword research is the first step I have to do in SEO campaign. That's a myth. The first thing you have to do is topic research, because you have to understand what it is that your marketplace want. And they think that, you know, if you target a certain market keyword, let's say, okay, not indoor plants anymore, right? Nutrition plan, okay? If you target that nutrition plan, your market will require you with a certain standard. You know, what do you know about nutrition plan? Do you know about the diet plan? Do you know about nutrition plan for people who are athletes? Do you know a nutrition plan for people who have diabetes? Blah blah blah, all kind of stuff. The market will actually require this at least the basic requirements in terms of the topic that you can cover before you go into understanding, which is doing keyword research, which is understanding your consumer. So that's the first thing, right? So here, so this is actually the sort of like a pyramid workflow that we draw, and we break this down to these 5-step things. And the first 3 steps evolve about researching, right? If you do, like I said, in all our webinar from the beginning until now, if you do your research well, you already cover about 80% of your chance to win, right? And then the last 2 steps would be execution. So the first 3 steps, you have to do topic research, and that is to form topic and subtopics that show Google you are an expert. The second step, after you're done with that, is keyword research. That's when you figure out exactly what your consumer wants, how much your competition are facing. So what keyword should go into what phase of your content strategy. The third level is after you have all the keyword laid out under each of the topic that you have, you form the articles that you will write, right? Determine what need to be written and when. Because now that you have all the keyword, you will want to know when do you write certain keyword first and what keyword you should group together so you can optimize on the output of that article. After you're done with that part, you already have this really well clear and strategically mapping in your head that you already cover the market, which is Google, you cover your consumer, which is the keyword, and then you already have the article ready to roll, laid out in your sort of planning in your head. Then you go to execution. That's when you start writing all those articles, and you have to do, here's the very interesting part. That is where you have to balance between writing for Google bots and also writing for human. Because you can't simply just write for once and forget the other. If you write for the bots, you can rank, but you will quickly find out that Google will measure how much engagement the readers actually go in there in between your article, and you will soon see that your results are no longer sustainable. You have to write well. You have to write correctly, and you have to write well. So that's the execution. That was a very important part. The second is final review and publish. That's where you check for plagiarism checker, you check for all the other structure, ABC, and then you go live with your content. All right, this is the 5 step.